Hi and welcome to another episode of the Getting Things Done podcast from Vital Learning. I am Morten and as always I'm here with my good friend and colleague Lars Henriksen. Привет, Lars.
Привет, Morten. Good to see you as always, and as always good to be with our listeners and viewers out there. We always start off with a quick reminder of the purpose of this podcast, which is to help you learn GTD or become even better GTDers. We hope that today's episode supports you in that. If you are new to GTD, we always recommend you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 6 of the audio version of the podcast. That's where we describe the basics of GTD, the 5 steps. This is episode number 124 of the podcast, and today's episode is about GTD and your summer vacation.
It is, and how to survive and how to get most out of it is probably the base feelings around this. And we, as we normally do, we do a little pre-show thinking, and we started talking about where would we start, and we landed on that we will start with a natural planning model, Lars, can I challenge you just to give us a brief overview on what is the natural planning model?
Morten, you're very sneaky at this in the podcast. You know that I have gotten comments about that. And your turn. So the natural planning model is the model that you find in chapter 3 of the Getting Things Done book. In the GTD trainings, we cover it in the level 2 training. It's always a big hit, perhaps the most popular part even of the level 2 training. And we... It is. It's a model that we pick up when we have more strategic, creative, complex projects that we need to plan and we need to really think through. We use it, you can use it for yourself, you can use it as a team, you could use it with your family, perhaps in this context. And these are 5 different steps that we then go through to work our way through a project where we try to define, so what would the purpose be and what are the standards that we, the surroundings, the standards for the travel, what's the vision, the wild success, what's the brainstorm, everything that needs to happen to get to that wild success. And then we try to organize that and make a plan for it and then figure out the next actions. Easy as that.
Easy peasy. So, and we do have a dedicated episode for the natural planning model, I guess.
I think that was episode number 10, actually. That off the top of my head, yep, episode number 10.
Episode number 10. So, if you want to have little more meat on the bone, what the natural planning model is, then go back to pause this and go to episode 10 and come back.
I was just going to say, you can go back and find very, very young versions of Morten and Lars, but unfortunately it was audio only, I think, until around episode 40, 50 something. So you only hear the younger voices of Morten and Lars.
I think we were just as, people comment that they like our Scandinavian dialects here and accents in English. So that is still present now.
GTDers are just the nicest people.
That's no, GTDers are the nicest people, so that hasn't changed. So, but to do a natural planning model with your family, I did that a couple of times with my ex-wife and my son. And the way that we did this is to just sit down, and they didn't know that this was a natural planning model. I didn't inform them that this is part of GTD, but it is a very powerful model that you can use to hash out almost anything, also your summer vacation. So then just ask people the silly questions. Why are we going on a summer vacation? That's where I would start, and then get them to talk, get them to ask, why do you want to go on a vacation, and why might be a difficult one if you have teenagers. I don't want to go. I want to hang with my friends. I don't know if that's something that you, our dear listener, has encountered. I have not. Lars have not either yet, but
not yet.
Not yet. Exactly. But why are we going with this? Why are we going on a vacation? What do we, how would that make you feel if the why is fulfilled? Where would you start with your family? I think you have done this also already, Lars.
Yeah, we have not as not as much as I would have thought. Actually, I think we have played around with it, but the oldest is 9. So we played around with it, I think, last year or the year before. But they're still fairly young, so for the most part, it makes sense for us to work with it. But again, to set the framing for their brainstorm, I think we would have probably picked out some of the components from the natural planning model. Say, hey, so we are going on vacation because of this. We'll go to Norway. We'll be in this type of vacation. What would you like to do? That kind of framing, and then they would come up with different ideas. Go to the summer house. All right. Well, we have to catch the big crabs, and we have to go fishing, climb a mountain, whatever it might be. So, I think that's mostly where we've used it as a family for now. But I imagine we will be using it more going forward.
Yeah, and to just establish the wild success, that was a wild success with my, especially with my son, because he wanted to have a vision of how it would be to be on a vacation. So if we went somewhere, what we would do there, and like fishing crabs and do whatever you do on a vacation. That helped him frame this, and that made him more positive to go on a vacation, even when he's a little older. So when he traveled, it's then to ask him what would you like to see, and that was highly motivational for him, and then it was part of the decision. So when we finally packed the bags and went, he was ready, and he was motivated, and he was happy about it. I'm sure you will see the same with your boys. And for those of you who don't know, Lars have 3 boys. One is still keeping me awake in the night, at least one.
If I fall asleep during the recording, that's just the reason. Don't worry.
Yeah, I have my microphone connected to your ears. I will shout very loudly, and you'll wake you up.
I'm awake. I'm still here.
I'm still here. Okay, so and then look at one of the things that I would do. We talk about why are we doing this, and what standards we would like to adhere to. So for it could be okay. It will be 1 week or 1 week and a half. I don't know, 10 days, and that's the time we have. What we would like to fill those days with, where we are going. So talk about where you will go, and what you would like to fill the days with, and then what wild success would look like as then wild success will come after. Like, I'm sure your boys are going to ask, can we go to Paris and Disney? Is it Land or World? I don't remember. Disney World, I guess.
So Disney something. Yeah.
Disney something in Paris. I'm sure they will ask this, and then the wild success will be spending way too much money and time in Disney World. But they will be happy. And then the standards will then be adhered to if we want to go there. We will like to see something good. Okay, so now we planned where we will go and what we will do there, and but then you have to keep track of everything. So how do you handle the calendar part there, Lars? The calendar is a big part of traveling. You need to keep track of if you have some flights or you have some ferry times you would like to catch. If you made I know normally you would take the ferry to Norway, I guess, from Denmark to Larvik in Norway, and then all of that needs to be in the calendar, and everything that needs to be booked. So how do you keep track of that? So and how do you plan?
That just goes directly in the calendar. Exactly as you say. It's as we go through the process, I was just looking through it, and as you mentioned, now we go to Norway every year. My mother's parents were from Norway, so we have a summer cottage there, and we go there every year. So the project, I think, is pretty. I could even make a checklist for booking vacations now, because it's pretty much the same every year. Agenda to wife: should we go to Norway again this year? She will say yes. Agenda to my mom: when do we have the access to the summer house, because it's shared with her siblings? All right, it's these weeks. Then agenda wife: when should we go? computer, book the ferry, Google camping sites, because we'll typically go 1 week camping and 1 week at the summer house. And then, book the things in your calendar, perhaps, a shared note with different ideas that have come up with what we wanted to do on vacation. So we might have found, a theme park nearby, or, we want to go sailing, or we want to go, do something special. We might have that, or shared shopping list if there's stuff we need to go buy. When we go to Norway, there's all different kinds of foods that we don't get in Denmark that we have to get. So we have a pretty significant list with all the good stuff from Norway.
What foods?
Yeah,
what foods?
Well, we have to have quick lunch when we go, the chocolate, and we have to have the mackerel, and there's some liver paste, and there's a special herring salad that they make in Sandefjord, near the city near the summer house. And there's, I could go on. You don't want to get me started.
Good.
we have so many things that we Joika, my sister, will insist on the meatballs in a can. So many things that we have to buy. And then, of course, the travel checklist that we have that. Obviously, perhaps it's worth just mentioning. I don't know, yours may be the same, but at least for a long time, mine was sort of it was not a travel checklist; it was a packing list. So it had all the stuff that we need to put in the bags for the kids and for ourselves. But then we found out that, actually some things are stored not at home but elsewhere, so we need to go get that before we start packing. All right, so there was some stuff we need to do at least a week in advance. So that started to really expand the list. Make sure that we have some food in the fridge for when we get home. When we do get home, make sure that we set up a shared photo album with the family as well. So there are sort of different, steps to take before and after. So at least that was one of the things that how my system evolved at some point.
So you have a pre-travel and post-travel, and then the packing list, and everything in between.
Yeah, exactly. So we set that up soon. When we know the dates that we're going, we'll set up the checklists. I think around a month before is when I typically do it. I just shared Apple Notes with my wife on her phone as well, because in there we all have what do we need to do before the vacation, both a week or 2 weeks before, and also the night before, and what are the plans, and take out the trash, and all that good stuff that you learned at some point where you forgot to do that. Now never to do that again.
Okay, so I was going to throw you under the bus again, but you kind of answered my question. Says, why would you have a checklist? Well, to not to forget and to forget until you need to, be, and then a checklist is the only thing that I think we haven't mentioned, is that it needs to be pruned. It needs to be, it needs to be, what do you call that? Refined every year. Take things out, add things that showed up. And the reason you are doing this is, of course, that you want to make sure that nothing slips for you. So,
some of it showed up because Smart Lars sat down and thought to make a list, and some of it showed up because the current Lars looked back at Smart Lars and said, "You weren't that smart, so we should bring this next year."
Yeah, let me tell you a very short story about the person who did not do this. An unnamed friend of my wife and I, he was going to Dubai last weekend on Saturday, and he did not have a checklist. And he arrived at the airport with his annulled old passport. The one with holes in it. They punched holes in it to make sure he didn't mistake it. But he didn't have it. He was in a stressful moment. He has to rush to take the train, and then so he arrived, and then he panicked, and he got back on the train to go back to it's a city outside Oslo called Drammen, and for those of you who know where that is, that's not a very short distance. So he traveled there, and then he got his passport, and then he got on the train, and of course he was late to his plane. So he spent the night in our apartment, in our guest room, and let that be a lesson to you all. Checklists are good for you. So, and where do you have your checklists, Lars? Where do you keep them?
Yeah, good question. So I started adding really elaborate, good checklists in when I had my GTD system in OneNote. So that's,
Mm,
10, 15, 10 plus years ago at least.
mm,
And then they kind of stuck there, even though I migrated to Todoist as my
mm,
my platform for managing projects, next actions, areas of focus even. But they kind of stayed there. And now that
mm,
I am sort of putting things together in the Apple environment, I'm moving things to Notes. It's just
okay.
quicker and easier to work with, and it's also that most GTDers that have made a transition from one system to another will also recognize that there is an opportunity to refine, like you just
Mm,
said. So I had maybe slightly too long checklist. So there were some things on there that I used to pack that I don't pack anymore.
mm,
So they have been simplified as they made their way to Apple Notes.
mm,
So we have them there. We actually play around with them a bit, and of course, I have my creative wife who is also very. She works with children as well, and is very knowledgeable about that, and so she'll take our checklist and then she'll make
mm.
one for the kids with drawings and what they should pack. So she'll draw 4 shirts and she'll draw 3 pairs of pants and she'll draw. We have some pretty elaborate checklists as well. So
Cool.
depending on who it is, yeah, we
Mm,
we get different checklists. But I highly
okay.
recommend that. It works if
Mm,
you remember to bring that bag. So again,
mm.
also maybe speaking speaking from some experience here,
Uh-huh.
make sure you bring all the bags. Perhaps I need to put that on my checklist as well.
You forget one. Oh la
Yes.
la. Let's
La,
talk about
la, la,
something
la, la.
else.
Yes, fortunately, the age difference between our two oldest boys is not too big, so it all worked out.
Okay. Good. 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 Good.
What about you? Where are your
Uh,
lists?
they are in notes, and just before we go to notes and how I use them is that I think if you are in the PC Microsoft world, then OneNote could be a very good option for you.
Hmm.
If you have Google account, you can use what do you call it, Google Tasks as a
Google Keep, I
checklist.
think, right?
Google
I
Keep,
think at
yeah,
least
okay,
Jukka, I remember
yeah,
Jukka presenting from Finland how he used
yeah,
to do that and delegate the checklist
yeah,
to the
yeah.
kids as well, so they had their
Mm.
own. And yeah,
So
that could
yeah,
work well.
yeah, you can also, well, the OneNote PC world, if you want to do it personal, share with your better half, could be in Google Keep. Or as Lars and I, we are in the Apple sphere of both apps and operating systems and thingies. So we do use notes, and it is shareable. All of them are shareable with others, so it's easy to make sure that the other people who are involved in your packing or travel preparations are kept informed. So the one that what you haven't mentioned yet is one of the things that I don't know, before we get out of the house. I don't know if you have a little before where you have to
Hmm.
plan what you put, but just leaving the day you're leaving, that's one very crucial checklist that we have. Like, check that all the windows are closed, make sure that the non-OCD person checks that all the ovens are off and all the sockets that needs to be unplugged are unplugged, so that you can get out of the house and everybody can be relaxed. Like, and take the trash out. That's one of the big things. We
Hmm.
come home after 3 weeks in vacation and um,
Yeah.
um, the house smells like a garbage dump. That's not a good emotion to arrive with. So,
Yeah.
but create
No,
them and
especially, and we have some. I don't know if if you have that kind of. Sometimes we a few times now we've been invited by my mom to go to Cyprus, and that'll be
mm,
sort of that all inclusive kind of thing. And those planes tend to leave pretty early in the morning, at least when it
mm.
yeah the ones that we get. so
Yeah.
so we have to get up at 3 a.m. and drive at 4 a.m. And you
Mm.
really I need checklists when I'm awake, but at that time I really do need do need checklists. We will
Lock the
actually. I was
door.
just thinking now. We would we actually print them and then check them off
Mm.
as we go through them, and then we add to the list as we
Yeah.
there's something we find missing.
That's a
Then
good
when
idea.
we come home, we put that printed version in. It goes in my in tray, my inbox,
Yeah.
and I will update the checklist accordingly. I don't know. I just thought of that. I don't know if you do that as well.
No, but I think that is a really good idea, especially if you're traveling with kids and want to make it, something they can see and learn from, which is never a bad thing. And it makes the updating after. You don't have to think about it. It's just to capture the change, and then you can change it after. So if you do not do that, then you have to create an item at the bottom of the list, and that's not been processed somehow. So that's good. And it is physical visible. If it is physical visible, you are, the digital sphere is convoluted, and it's hidden in an app somewhere. Instead of it's on the table. This we need to do before we leave the house. And ask Dad if he's locked the door. That's probably a good one. And your that what your wife are doing with making the drawings, making it for the help them, then it's cool. And all the apps that we've been talking about have the checkbox, so you can tick it off. And if I'm not mistaken, that both I don't remember if Google have this in Google Keep. When you tick something off, is it removed? Can it stay there even after it's ticked off?
It's been a while since I checked actually how it reacts by default. I don't know.
No. Well, it's not. It's just a detail. Is that in Apple Notes it stays there. It doesn't go away. And I think the same in in OneNote, it stays there. It just gets ticked off, which is a good thing if you're more than one person packing, for example. You know what your better half has packed, and you know what your children has packed, because you can check it because it's online. I don't know if your boys have some iPad access or something that they can. I'm sure they would love to have an iPad to play with.
No, we have a pretty locked down actually. The one my iPad, so they have access, but just they use it for drawing. So that's why. No, so for this, that's part of the reason why we printed as well. We've also played with, having a table for each of the things that we need, so everyone can check off their own. I've packed this and you've packed this, and it's something to play around with. Then we haven't really settled on any specific things other than I thought the visual checklist that my wife came up with actually seemed to work pretty well.
Yeah, and it's that if it's on the table or somewhere on it, or in I don't know where you keep this, but if or on the fridge, I don't know where. But if the children then pack, and then everybody else can see I packed this, and you can get a tap on the shoulder with with a clap, well done, young Padawan. Yeah, and I just want to go briefly back to calendar, and we both use it extensively for planning. I just want to share how I'm using the calendar. I have a calendar that I invite my wife to the events that we go somewhere where she need to have possibly have an active. She can see my calendar, but all the events that I would like her to be actively participating or potentially actively participating, I invite her from my personal calendar. And then what goes there is all the travel information. So the flight numbers, if there's we went to the weekend. We are recording this on a Monday, so on Saturday to Sunday we traveled to a small city in Norway for just for the weekend, and we had a confirmation code and from the hotel, and I just downloaded the confirmation. It was a PDF, and I put it on a shared folder in Google Drive, and that just linked that to the calendar event for the stay, and she then have access to everything. That if I should fall over and can't talk or something happens, then she can take over and has the access to whatever she needs to have access to. I don't know. Do you use something similar? Does Silly have access to?
Yeah, exactly. So we would share that as well, and I would invite as well. So our approach would pretty much be the same, but both work and home calendars are already shared, so it would be visible. But yeah, so I would invite there. I do come across some people that prefer the family calendar. I don't know. I'm guessing you have come across that as well. For me personally, I just prefer, I have my things under control, you have your things under control, and we can work together. The family thing, who maintains that homes, that it's just for me, it's different, but some people really like that as well. And of course, if that's your preference, then great.
No, I've experimented earlier with this, as I have it like this works especially well if your children have access to see the calendar somewhere. Like you put the calendar on Apple TV, or you put it on an iPad that they can see, so that then you can have a family calendar which shadows what the family will do together. And then as long as they can't, that they don't have a device of their own, they can also see, I don't know, on Thursday I have soccer practice, and it's from this time to this time. That's good information to know for mom and dad, because probably they have to drive you, or I have the band is playing, I need to be there, the brass band. And the idea is to have one family calendar that's helping the children to get an overview of their world, but their mother and father is in charge of their, reminding them. But as they get older, they can get a personal calendar, but that should be either invited or shared with the parents, so that they know what is going on. That's what I think might be. Not maybe exactly the best practice, but one practice that will keep everyone in the loop for what you need to.
Yeah. We just created accounts for them when they were like 2 or 3, and then just started having their own calendars. That's so Lars, it wouldn't have to clog up our
digital
calendars.
Roskid Hendrickson.
Yes, that is me.
Yeah. Did you get them their domain as well?
We had that, but we sold off again.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So well, I haven't done that for my son. I know some people do buy domains for their children, so firstname.lastname.com or something. Okay, so now we are getting ready to travel, and I shared that I use Google Calendar and Google Drive for share whatever information we need to share. And I do also have, we talked about, I think last time we talked about traveling, I have some apps that I'm using. And you might want to think about what apps you are using, Lars, if you're using anything outside the what we talked about already. But I use 2 apps a little. One is permanent for me at the moment. It's called an app called Flighty. And Flighty is a flight tracker app that's been a little flaky, but it feels a little better now. It's a subscription. You will subscribe to it, and it helps you keep track of all the flights you have, and it keep you in the loop for. It shows up on your iPhone. It is iPhone only. I'm sorry, I looked it up before we started, but if you have an iPhone, you're in the green for this. And this, I'm sure there are Android apps as well. If you have a tip for a flight planner for Android, send us an email, because we want to have this in our toolkit when we talk to you in a couple of years' time about traveling again. Then we will have updated information. So, but the Flighty keeps track of all the flights, and it also give me I have a newer iPhone. I think this was from iPhone 14, and it is what's called the dynamic island, which is like the pill on the top of your phone. If you have a pill on the top of your phone, a elongated part on top of your screen, then you know what I'm talking about. And that goes there when we get ready. It's on the what you call the lock screen. It shows up there. Then it shows how long time it is to the flight. What is the flight number? How long time would the flight take? When will you land? And during, it will also give you, if you have some, gate changes, or when the gate is announced, it will show up on the app. You can add your seats there you can import automatically from most airlines. You just forward the email to Flighty, and it will automatically put the flights in your calendar. So it's a calendar connects to Google Calendar, and it puts the flights there with the flight number and or a link back to the app, so you can see all the details in the app. It also have historical flight data, so if you traveled with this before, it can tell you how many times you've flown with this, how often has it been delayed for you, and then how often has it been delayed for others, and for how long. So you kind of get all the statistics you will your statistic person inside you who loves statistics can use, if you like it, of course. If you're not a statistic person, this is not a valuable information. But and then I use something called Tripsy, which is a part of. Well, you can buy this, or you can, I think, it's subscribed to it on a thing. This is also iOS, macOS app only. It's called it's Tripsy, and you can do it directly with a subscription, or you can do it through the Set app. I don't know if you know what Set app is, but it is kind of an alternative app store for iOS and macOS and iPadOS, and it's they have a lot of very good apps there. So I'm a subscriber, and it's very affordable, more affordable than you should think about. So Tripsy is also part of the setup subscription, so I have that. And Tripsy is more like for for travels that I don't use a plane, where it's more like a road trip, or you take a ferry boat, or you go on a cruise. I don't know, anywhere where you don't go with a plane. That's where I use Tripsy, and it keeps all the information. You can add documents to it. You can have a timeline so that you know where you will go. And I've also put inside, for example, museums we would like to see, sites we would like to visit, and addresses and links to, so that when you open the app, you can just, we are now going to this museum. You will get your Google Maps open, so you can go there. What apps are you using, Lars, for this this purpose of during planning before and during? How do you get where you are going? Just
none.
Vanilla?
Next question.
Next question.
No, I think I mentioned when we set up any sort of information that we want to capture about the vacation, we would just have in notes. We don't have any specialized apps for that. So yeah, I think that's probably where it would go. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just notes. So if you have a program for if you have a link to a map to the museum, it will be there, or
probably in the calendar if we know when we're going. Otherwise, it'll be there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm just, you don't need an app for everything, but there is an app for almost anything, and I think at least for Flighty, that I found to be it gives a lot of information that and it's a little expensive, the subscription, but I feel the peace of mind that it gives me, when you are at you get a delayed notification, or if it's a gate change, you will get it before they are announced on the PA system or at the screens. So I think it adds value when we are traveling. So I feel more comfortable traveling, more relaxed, and hey, we like relaxed. So then we have Okay, so anything to add during during the travel? Anything you would like to?
No, I think just I'm curious to hear your standards or practices for how you use your sort of GTD habits,
Oh
both
yeah.
during and I imagine that before you going on vacation, you probably did a solid weekly review. Of course, you do that every week, but a really solid
An
one.
extra solid one,
But what do
yes.
you do when it comes to capturing during the vacation? Do you clarify empty inboxes? Do you do weekly reviews? I
Mm.
was just curious to hear what you do, and I imagine that this would sort of differ between brief vacations, business vacations, longer summer
Mm.
vacations. What's your standard?
No, before I travel, of course, I set aside ample time for doing a thorough weekly review, and I also try to plan the vacation before, a few weeks before, in the way of, is there something I need to hand off to someone else? Like we have colleagues, I have colleagues that I need to talk to if there's somebody who can, I'm going on the vacation. This and there. Can I put you in the if emergency you need to get hold of me, text me or call me. If not super urgent, send an but you need to get an answer, send an email to my colleague, and just to get that sorted before we go. And then when I do the weekly review, I will then add on my checklist, prepare is like do the out of office reply, and change my voice, what do you call it, voicemail message, the answering machine message, saying that I'm on a vacation. I don't expect me to call back if I don't, send me a text. That's a better way of showing me, because sometimes I'm somewhere I can't talk. I'm having a martini in the bar. I don't want to talk to you. So no, so I would do that, and then during I would just capture. That would be my default. I would not, if I have an idea or something, or if I have an SMS that I need to respond to, I would use Siri to add it to my Apple reminders. Remind me of this, and then give her a little more information. Remind me of this in an hour. Then it will pop up on my screen on my phone in 1 hour, or remind me of this when I'm back at the hotel, because then the hotel will be mapped, and Siri will know where the hotel is. And I would just capture. That would be mine. I prefer not to deal with emails. I prefer not to think about work when I'm vacationing with my family. I want to be there with them, and if I can. I think you might have some of the same thinking, Lars, or how do you handle this?
Yeah, no. I think we when it comes to email, I have switched a bit and tried both, and I can recognize both, and I also hear that from you know. Coaching clients or people participating in trainings
Mm.
that, for them to stay present, they just need to know that everything is under control. And for them, then
Yeah.
it helps to do that quick email
Mm.
scan. But otherwise, yeah, I try to disconnect and would prefer to do that as well.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, capture, whatever shows up, typically not that much and only in the
Mm.
first few days of the vacation. Sometimes I'll clarify and organize as well, just to be sure that, you mentioned a 3-week vacation. If I capture some random note and,
Mhm.
and then 3 weeks later I look at it and I'm like, what the, what is this? That
Yeah.
might be a bit of a challenge. So if I'm concerned that I wouldn't know what I was talking about when I wrote it down,
Mm.
I would be sure to clarify and organize that. So I
Mm.
I probably do that on a weekly basis on
Mm.
vacations,
Yeah.
but maybe not. I've also switched when it comes to weekly reviews.
Mm.
Sometimes I've done them and sometimes I haven't. Rarely do I need a big review because not much has changed since the last
Mm.
time I did a review. So it could be a really quick one. In some cases, this could be, let's say we are going on that summer vacation, and this is where I would plan my half-year review, then that would require a weekly review beforehand to make sure that that part is not going to take up any of my attention. I have that under control. It's fresh in my memory, and then I can move on to the higher horizons and other things that I would do in my half-year review. So I think that's probably how I would use GTD in my vacation.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines as you, and I think you put me onto this. Something that if I feel that I have some very important emails or something I would like to follow on email, I have a very easy way of doing that, and it is I have if it's not actionable and it's trash, you will of course delete it when it shows up in your inbox if you clarify, and then but when you think about this, well, I can archive it, or do I need to do something about it? And so what I do then is to I've created I think this is your invention, Lars. I'm not sure. Tell me if I'm wrong, but the clarify after vacation, or answer after vacation. That's your invention, isn't it?
Sure, let's say that.
Let's
I don't
roll
know if
with
I
that.
can take credit. But I'm always really careful about these ideas, because oftentimes I came up with this great idea, and then David mentioned it 20 years ago, or someone else, you mentioned it, or whoever mentioned it. So I don't I don't want to take credit, but it's a good idea. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so the way that I do this, I do it at, the folders or the labels in the Gmail has, you can, if I put a dot, it will sort on the top, so it will be dots, answer after vacation, and then all the emails that I deem to be answerable after I get back, I just, label them or move them there, and then they're out of the inbox, and it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And then you have one very important list that you have to look at when you get back, which is the answer after vacation folder. But for me, this has helped me feel more present, because specifically if I'm waiting for something, and maybe if you don't feel comfortable as a person to not read email. And I know that there are regional in this world, cultural regional differences on how we, the Nordics, and maybe specifically in Scandinavia, we want to enjoy our vacations. We don't have to, unless it's really important, you prefer relax and not think about work. So,
I think most people would want that from their vacation.
Yeah, but the cultural differences is that a lot of people, specifically, I think in the US, have the boss expects you to answer email when you're on vacation. It's like, oh, I'm glad I'm not living there.
I've heard different stories, so maybe that's culturally also within the organization.
Yes, yes.
But we should geek out at some point about how I have changed my Gmail structure in how it only shows new emails twice a day. So that happens based on a script. So when I go on vacation now, I can just disable that automatic running of that script. So that would in practice be that same kind of parking lot for all the emails that showed up on vacation. We need to look into that. I'm sure we can come up with a cool solution.
Capture that, and so we can share it with people, because I'm sure we will geek out on that. Okay, so
let's do that.
So now you've been on a trip, you've enjoyed the trip, and you get back. So you will of course use your checklist for what you do when you get home, if you have a checklist. But one of the things that we discussed briefly in the pre-show is that I suggest that you have a checklist for a debrief after the vacation. So you get home, and I had 2 things or 3 things that I would suggest that goes on that list. That could be, what was the best thing about this vacation, or what was the best things about this vacation? What did you enjoy the most? And get everybody's input on that in the family. So, well, I enjoyed this, and this was a lot of fun, and just to reflect a little on what did go well, and what did we enjoy? And then secondly, what could it be better? What can we do better next year? So for example, if you plan too much activities and you didn't get through all of them, maybe some more space in the calendar could be good, or some space in the vacation. And then the last item I would suggest that you put there, where would we like to go next year? You know, and maybe like you have a fixed trip to Norway, which me and the rest of the Norwegian are very happy that you do. We recommend the rest of the world to do the same. We need revenue, so come see us. And then if you are traveling, then maybe you, like you, Lars, will see what kind of theme parks we would like to see. What are we doing next year? What are the tweaks we would like to do to make it even more interesting next year? So anything to add to such a list, debrief list?
No, I think that's great. We've done that sort of ad hoc sometimes, but not as structured as you do. I think that's a great tip. We already mentioned the post-travel checklist. One thing that, sharing photo albums, things like that. One thing to add to, make sure you have room in your calendar for when you come back to actually then dealing with all the stuff that happened while you were away. So you're not just thrown into meetings or other plans straight away. I think that would be the key thing for me to add to what you already mentioned.
Yeah. And we've been mentioning this in earlier episodes as well, that when you come back for the vacation, let's say that you come back on a Saturday and your work week starts on Monday, then maybe you should keep extend your I am not available until Tuesday, so that you have Monday to clarify and organize everything that's happened in between, get caught up with things, do a weekly review / clarify and answer the emails that seem urgent, and plan how to catch up. I do that. I think you do that as well. And just because if people know you're back on Monday and you don't reach out to them, then they are a little miffed maybe. But maybe they are not the most important person or the most important instance of what you will need to do, so they can wait for Tuesday. That could be possible.
Yeah.
So, anything to add from your perspective, Lars?
No, I think the last thing I just wanted to mention was also something that gives me some peace of mind, is to have that passport expiry date, and make sure that you have that captured in your calendar, or sometime before the expiry date. Mine is 7 months before for everyone in the family, and the reason is that some countries will be less
6
happy
months.
if you show up with a passport that expires in less than 6 months. So 7 months for me, because I know I'll see it in advance. It takes about 2 weeks to get one in Denmark, so should be fine to have that 7 months before. That's calmed me down a bit more. But instead of having to, all right, packing time, here are the passports. I wonder if any of them are expired. So just getting ahead of that one has been a helpful thing for me.
No, I do agree with you to have that. I also do have that in for my wife and I. It's in the calendar when our passports expiring. We also have ID cards that's don't have the same date, but they also need to get renewed. It's easier to carry that in your pocket than a big passport if you want to identify yourself. I think we've rounded this one up. I hope that this has been beneficial for you, our listener. And if you don't have anything to add, Lars, will you take us out?
Yeah, one last thing to add. Besides, we wrapped up the travel part. I was just curious, for those of you out there who work in teams, how you visualize and follow up on projects and goals. Perhaps you have, you've read the team book and you have created the higher horizon for your team, or perhaps you just have a few goals, few projects. which came from higher up in the organization. How you then visualize, and do you have a physical board? Do you have a Microsoft Planner, Todoist, Trello, a specialized tool for this? How do you then interact with it? Do you revisit it on a weekly basis, personally, monthly with the team? Do you work with it throughout the the work week? How do you actually engage with this from a team perspective as well? I know it's so different from team to team, and I hear different stories from some of the more, let's say, advanced teams that we come across in trainings. But I'd love to hear more. So either Lars at VitalLearning.dk or podcast at VitalLearning.dk to share it with both Morten and myself. At least I'd love to hear some practical examples of how people out there use it. So that was today's special request from Lars.
Yeah, and we can also because both you and I. So if you are in Norway or Denmark, feel free to go to our websites, and if you are a GTDer, would like to know more about how you can implement GTD for your team, then you can book a free consultation with Lars and me, or Lars or me, depending if you're in Denmark or Norway. And the idea here is that we will help you get the most out of your getting things done practice, and try to give you some pointers on how you can implement that with your team. It's all based on the team getting things done with others book, and our experience on how you can do that, getting it implemented within your team. And both Lars and I have long experience with helping companies doing that. So that's another add-on.
I have one of those calls scheduled in 45 minutes.
Okay, so
with actually someone from Sweden, so a bit outside, slightly outside Denmark, but close
that's
enough.
Denmark plus.
I'm sure the Swedes will love that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But,
I will quickly move on to the wrap up to avoid any further digging down in the rabbit hole already. With a quick reminder of the GTD Summer Camp 2025 coming up. As always, really excited about this. Participants from all over the world again. Europe, North America, Asia. We hope to see you there. It takes place June 14 to 15. We'll be in Denmark once again. If you want to learn more, head on over to gtdsummercamp.com. GTD Summer Camp in one word. That is where you can find as much information as is available right now, and that's where you sign up as well. We already have, I think, around 60 participants when we record this, so I'm sure by the time this is out, we'll be even more. So we'll grow again this year. Be a lot of fun. And also a quick reminder to head on over.
Just a little. Don't wait. If you want to come, don't wait. Sign up. Sorry, Lars. Continue, please.
and the other reminder, you probably heard this before. If you heard the podcast before, head on over to VitalLearning.eu, because that is the overarching website for all of the Vital Learning Nordics plus country groups that we have. So you'll find links to each of the country websites there, and there you'll find information about all the work that we do, which relates to getting things done, crucial conversations, crucial influence, and more. So find your way there, find the newsletter, how you get in touch with Morten and myself, VitalLearning.eu. And if you are outside the Nordics, cruciallearning.com is the place to go to find your local partners.
Indeed. And thank you all for sticking with us. We know that some of you enjoy this. That's why you keep listening, I think. And we enjoy hearing from you. We are now a little low on our listener questions. So if you have a listener question, please feel free to send that at podcast@vitallearning.dk. podcast@vitallearning.dk for your listener questions, where you can nerd out with your problem, and we will try and help you sort it out. And with that, it is my duty to say, as I always do, until next time, stay safe and stay productive. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.